Um, Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Kalayim, Pedig Tes, Halachi Gimel. We are learning today Daf Ayin Tes, and we're learning today Daf Pei. I stand corrected. No. We're learning today Daf Ayin
Het. Amud. Bet.
Okay, I'm going to take another take two. Mamish, okay, I got it wrong.
That's pretty funny, right? First time that's happened.
That's right. Always the first time.
It's a segula for Parnasa.
Yes. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Kalayim, Pedig Tes, Halachi Gimel. Daf Pei. We left off on Daf Ayin Tes Amid Base, 13 lines before the bottom of the Amid. We are in the middle of the discussion of events that took place prior to and connected with the passing of Rabbeinu HaKadosh, called Rabbi, really Rabbi Huda Hanasi. And as we mentioned yesterday, we have a very similar sugya in Bavli Ksubas Daf Kuf Gimel Kuf Dalid. There are certain differences, and what's also amazing is that we had yesterday on Daf Ayin Tes also a discussion, a machlokes, whether during Tchias HaMesim, whether the Mesim are getting up in their tachrichin, whether Hashem is creating with their bodies the garments that they wore while they were alive, not their tachrichin. And in Ksubas, even though these two sugyas are not on the same daf, but if you remember, Ksubas Daf Kuf Yud Aleph, the Gemara Mamish has the same topic. And actually, Ksubas Daf Kuf Yud Aleph Amid Beis, the Tosfos brings our Gemara here in Kalayim, when the Gemara there says, Asidim tzadikim sheyamdu b'mal bushehen, and Tosfos points out the difference between the Bavli and the Yerushalmi. So even though it's not on the same daf, but somehow the passing of Rabbeinu HaKadosh is very much related to the topic of Tchias HaMesim. Now we're going to have more stories of the last years of Rabbi. Rabbi lived in Beis Sha'arim. Chevra Beis Sha'arim, Yakir will correct me if I'm wrong, is around 20 kilometers east of Haifa. That's where he lived. That's where he had his Beis Din. And because of an illness, Rebbe lived the final 17 years of his life on the mountains in a city called Tzipoide. The Gemara says in Bavli, and before we even read the Yerushalmi, Daf Kuf Gimel Amid Beis, all the way in the bottom, that Kivan the Cholash Am to Yuel Tzipoide. He moved to Tzipoide. Why? Daf Kuf Daled in Ksubas, because the medallia ubasim, because it's elevated and the air is sweet. There's something about the air that was beneficial for him. And let me do this. Let me read. I know it's late. I want to read a little bit of the Gemara in Ksubas, and you're going to see mamish some nuanced differences between here and there. So the Gemara says like this: that Ahu Yomed Anach Nafshi the Rebbe. On the day that he passed away, Gozra Rabbanan Tanisa, the Chachamim decreed it fast. I'm reading Ksubas Bavli Daf Kuf Dalad on the top. Ubay Rachme. And they were davening for him. And Va'amri, and the sages said, Kol man the Omar Noch Nafshi the Rebbe. Whoever is going to tell us that the Rebbe passed away, Yidoker Becherev, it should be pierced with a sword. No one should say that he passed away. Now the question is, what will that help? So no one is going to say that he passed away. The Shita Mikobetzes writes in Ksubas, because the Chachamim were hoping that even after his passing, as long as people were to keep on davening, they were hoping that he would get up right away for Tchias HaMesim. In other words, his physical passing was not viewed by the Chachamim like, a person passed away, too late, they passed away. They didn't view it that way. They actually were afraid that people will have that mindset. They're going to stop davening when he passes away. So they didn't want anyone to know, for people to continue to daven. Whoever was Gimel Tamas by the Rebbe, I can tell you, it was very similar, the feelings then. And listen to these words. Vlad, I'm reading a little bit on Bavli. Salika Amse the Rebbe Leigra, the maidservant of Rebbe went up to the roof, and Amra, and she said this expression that we do not have here in the Yerushalmi. El Yoinim Mevakshim Es Rebbe. El Yoinim means the heavenly bodies. V'tachtoinim, Yidden Mevakshim Es Rebbe. that we should win. However, when she saw Kamazin many times, the Ayala Beis Hakisei Rebbe was suffering with stomach ailments. The Gemara says on Kuf Gimel Amid Beis and Ksubas that Ruban Sadikin Misasan B'Choyle Ma'ayin. Even though we're going to learn now that he had a tooth ailment, that was before this. Rebbe suffered, he passed away from stomach ailments. And he suffered, he needed to go to the bathroom a lot. And B'Cholatz Tefillin, he needed to take off the tefillin and put on the tefillin. And she saw, this woman, how much tsar Rebbe has. So she flipped her prayers. May be the will that he should pass away. Mikan, Daran says that if someone is very, very sick, it's not wrong to daven for someone to pass away when we see that they're in tremendous suffering. However, that was just a maidservant. They were not stopping, the davening did not stop, and she knew that if they won't stop to daven, he will not pass away. Now, God forbid to take someone's life, but you know what she felt she's allowed to do? She felt that she's allowed to stop their prayer. And what did she do? Shakla kuza. She took up avaz. I'm going to hear the Gabe correct me. I said both, whichever way. I said the right way, one of the ways. Shadya me'igra. She threw it from the roof, la'ara to the ground. So when it broke, there was noise. For that moment, they were quiet. And v'nach nafshi the Rebbe. And then the Chachamim asked Bar Kapara, go see what's happening with him, because I'm leaving off here, because the Gemara today will begin with Bar Kapara. Now, I want to say like this, that there's something we're going to learn about Rebbe's 13 years of suffering. We're going to learn about the concept of Nazifa. Nazifa is a self-imposed ban. So if someone feels that a tzaddik gave them a kpeda, instead of for that kpeda to affect them, they take upon themselves a certain type of punishment, which is they keep themselves away from their Rebbe, which is the most painful thing. And this will be connected, and the way the Gemara will weave here in the Yerushalmi, Rabbi Chia and Rebbe. Guys, Rabbi Chia bar Abba Karsala, don't forget there was a Rabbi Chia that was much later. Rabbi Chia bar Abba Karsala, Rabbi Chia, who was the uncle of Rav, right? Remember, from the father and the mother, Psachim in the beginning, Dav Dalit. Rabbi Chia was also the teacher of Rav. Rabbi Chia was a Talmud of Rabbi. And you have this question of who was greater. Rabbi was called Rabbeinu HaKadosh. Rabbi Chia wasn't as holy. Who are we to judge? I'm saying what the Gemara says over there in Ksubas. Or where we have the story that after he passed away, Rabbi Chia wanted to marry Rabbi's wife, and she told him that a vessel that was used for holiness should be used for choil. But yet, Rabbi Chia was marbitz Torah like no one else. Because of Rabbi Chia, the Torah was not forgotten. Number two, Rabbi was a Rosh Yeshiva. Rabbi Chia was a businessman. And the Gemara today, I hope we get there, compares Rabbi Chia to Yosef HaTzadik. That was his greatness, that he was a man of the world, and he did business, and he was a scholar, and he was a tzaddik, and he was marbitz Torah. There was something very unique about Rabbi Chia bar Abba. So we're going to have today, after going away from speaking about the greatness of Rebbe, we're going to speak about Rabbi Chia, stories of the passing of Rabbi Chia, stories about the burial of Rabbi Chia bar Abba. You know, Rabbi Chia had two sons, Yehud and Chizkiah. If you remember, I think it was on Tainus, where we learned that when they would daven for the Amid, it wouldn't be one. All three of them daven together. And when they daven together, if God would have allowed them to say the Shemona Esrei, Tchias HaMesim would have happened. That's how powerful Rabbi Chia and his sons, Yehuda and Chizkiah, are. It's going to be a lot of Agadata, and I think what's open for our generation to do is to take all of these stories, the way they're written here, and I remember these stories from the Babli, and to put them side by side, and that's the beginning of a beautiful journey. But anyways, let's go on Daf Ayin Tes Amud Beis. Thank you for that. 13 lines before the bottom of the Amid, by the dot, and here we go. Tziparaya Amrin, as we mentioned, the final years of his life, they lived in Sipari. Man da Amalon Rebbe Domach, whoever will say that Rebbe passed away, Anan Katlinanle, we will kill him. So in the Bible, Yudakir Becherev. Here, it's a lot more. We will kill them. What happened was, Adik Loin Bar Kapara. See, in the Bible also, they sent Bar Kapara to check on him. Now, what is he going to do? If Rebbe passed away, he's not allowed to share the bad news. So what happened was that Reishei Mechase, that Rebbe passed away. When Bar Kapara came back, he didn't say anything, but he covered his head, And manoi mevazein, he tore his garments, which is the halacha that when a Rebbe passes away, you're Rabbi Muvak, we don't have 7 days of Shiva, but you have to do Kriya. And the covering of the head, as we learned in Moyin Katan, even though we don't do it nowadays, they would put their hat all the way until their mouth. The way people wear the fedora had some people. Even today, I think the Yanuka, certain tzaddikim, they wear dafka in a way to express the mourning of the Churban Abayis. And Amar Loin, and here's what he said. Now we have these words in the Bavli. I just didn't read it so far. It's a little bit different there, but it's similar. Yitzukin ve'erelim, in Ksubas Daf Gimel Amid Kuv Gimel Amid Beis, there the lashon is the opposite. Erelim and mitzukin. Now erelim are malachim. Mitzukim is an expression of tzaddikim. So living tzaddikim and heavenly malachim are both grasping beluchai sabris. They're both holding on to the Aron. Rebbe was considered the Aron Kodesh, ukesipur hayidua with the holy Baal Shem Tov, and v'gavra yadan shel erelim, and the erelim, the malachim, won. How did they win? V'chatvu as haluchos, they snatched the tablets. Mamash gewaldig. I was looking quickly here. There's not enough time. How the lashon and the Bavli is similar, but not exactly the same. Okay. Now he didn't say he passed away. He said the erelim snatched the tablets. So they asked him, Demach Rebbe passed away? They asked him. So he told them, Amar Loin, well, Atamarita, you said that. I didn't say it. In other words, I'm not liable to you threatened me that we're going to get, I'm not liable to be killed. I didn't say it. So that's the better way of notifying of such a disaster, by making a remez and having the people that are listening asking, do you mean that? And then you say, I didn't say it. And vekaron, and then they rip kriya. How many people rent their garments? Everyone. So the asal kala the kodain, that the sound of the renting of the garments was so loud that sound traveled the guy papsa. Papsa is sitting nearby. How far is Papsa? Mahalach Tulasa Milan. And the Gemara says, Vaitin. Rav Nachman b'Shem Rav Mana. Maisa Nisim Nasu ba'oisa hayom. Maisa Nisim. Now, I'm curious why it's called Maasa Nisim, but what we're going to have over here, if you ask a Yid, how many times did the sun stop? Mamash stop. Well, we know by Yaakov Avinu, right? Sure. And by Moshe, by Amalek, and by Yeshua Gimel Tammuz. And now we're going to see that when Rebbe passed away, amazing, God, Rebbe passed away, Gimel Tammuz, but here we're talking about this Rebbe. When Rebbe passed away, the sun stopped. And who knew that? And this is not written in the Bavli. Mamish, for a long time. Why? Because Erev Shabbos, he passed away in Erev Shabbos. And V'niskansu kol hayoros laspide, and everyone gathered to eulogize him. Now, really, they carried him back from Tzipoidin, as we learned yesterday, to Beis Sha'arim. And even though they fulfilled his request of not stopping in the small towns, but they stopped in the large cities. And do you know how many times they stopped? Says the Gemara, that there were 18 times that they stopped. And don't forget, when they would stop, we learned about these mamadis in Moed Katan, right? Sit down, dear one, sit down. Then they would give a ganze drasha. Stand up, dear one, stand up, right? The Ma'amados and the Moishavos. So they made a total of 18. Our minhag now is that if you bury a person not out of Shabbos during the week, on days that you say Tachnun, we make 7 Ma'amados, but it's done very quick. Pashut, when they walk the person, we say Yoshev V'Seised, and we stop. By him, it was 18 times. Now, if it was out of Shabbos, and it wasn't just that they stopped the coffin the way we do it, they sat down and people eulogized, so it was a very long day. Until they finally brought him to Beis Sha'arim, which is where he wanted to be buried. The miracle was, what was the Ma'aseh Nisim? One miracle, that the sun stopped, so it wasn't becoming Shabbos. Until everyone who went to any of these eulogies had time to get back home, and not only to get back home, but to fill the barrel of water, which was something that the men would do. Interesting. The women were the ones that lit the candles, so maybe the women participated. The men went and the women went. But people, they didn't have watches, but they knew something is off. And listen to how long the sun stopped. Kivin, right? Daf pay on the top. Kivin sheshaka chama. When the sun set, you know what happened afterwards? Shortly afterwards, kara hageven. The rooster calls out right before dawn. So it's sunset, and it was already dawn. In other words, whatever the sun stopped, it caught up right afterwards, quickly. They didn't gain hours, but the sun stopped. Now here, clearly you see from over here, Shabbos is connected to the physical setting of the sun. And to the point where people heard the rooster, and people got anxious, and they said, Dilma the Chalon Shabbos, maybe we violated the Shabbos. Like such a short night. So Yatzas Abaskol v'Amrulem, they heard a heavenly voice that said, "Call me, Shaloi Nisnatzel Bespedish Rebbe." Whoever was not lazy, that made no, it's good. The heaven was happy that we eulogized the Rebbe, and whoever was talking or listening, Yehei Mevusar L'Chai Olam Haba, he's worthy to enjoy the life to come. However, the heavenly voice announced, Bar min Ketzara, excluding a certain laundryman. There was a person that would come to Rebbe every single day. The day that he passed away, he didn't come. So he was not there by the eulogies. So the way to go into Olam Haba is because you were there. That launderer means a Baal Tshuva, we'll get to that in a moment, is excluded. But Kivin, the Shamakein, when he heard that he was excluded, he was so distressed, he went up to a roof, Utalas Garme. Talas Garme Lochoina means he purposefully threw himself off, Umes, and he died. Right? It sounds like he committed suicide. And nevertheless, says the Gemara, Nafkas Bas Kolam Amra, a heavenly voice came out and said, Afilu Katzad, and even he is going to the world to come. In Babli Daf Kuv Gimel Amid Beis, when we have a little difference of how the story is written, and I'm going to read it over here in Daf Kuv Gimel Amid Beis. Ahu Yoime the Ashkafte the Rebbe, the day that Rebbe passed away here in the Babli. So he says, Nafka Bas Kolam Amra. Kol Dahava Ba'ashkafti the Rebbe, whoever was participating on any level with this passing, Mizumanu L'Chai Olam Haba. So says the Gemara, now not chutz. Says the Gemara, who koivis? Koivis is the katzara, the launderer. Kol Yoim Hava Asekami. He used to come to Rebbe every day. Hahu Yoim Eliyasa. He didn't go that day, so he wasn't participating in the Hespedim. Kivin Tashama Hachim, when he heard, sounds like he felt like I missed out. Salak le'igrav nafal ha'ara, he went up to the roof and he threw himself to the ground. Umis, and he died. And Yatzas Abaskol v'Amra af hahu koivis mezumenu l'chai olam haba. Says Toisvis, mezumenu l'chai olam haba. What's the chiddush? Tema v'haloi kol Yisrael yesh l'mchelik l'olam haba. Of course, every Jew. So answers Toisvis v'peirush Rav Reb Meir kol heicha do'amar. Whenever Chazal say mezumenu l'chai olam haba, hainu b'loi din u'b'loi yisurim. Shkoyach, everyone is going to Olam Haba. That baskol was that whoever participated in the passing of Rebbe is going straight to Olam Haba, whichever Olam Haba we're talking about, without the normal prerequisites. And the greatness of that koivis is that the pain that he had, that he missed, that tsar. Now, whether it was that he missed, it sounds like a selfish tsar. I do want to say that we have a similar story that Rabbi Elazar ben Durdaya, he died also while he was doing tshuva. In other words, it sounds like that if a person dies because of anguish of tshuva, the anguish of tshuva is excluded from the general prohibition of thou shalt not murder, which includes committing suicide. Suicide is a very sensitive topic. There is a certain concept that, of course, you're not allowed to do it. But once something happens, not every time is that person judged through the midas hadin. Sometimes there's other ways of God's execution of judgment. And clearly there was a tolerance by that suicide. And this is a very delicate topic, because people who have this, we can call this a mental illness, not in a derogatory way. People who have this desire, let's say, to commit suicide, one of the things that is helpful for them to contain themselves is their knowledge that suicide is murder. And if they hear any type of exception where suicide will be tolerated, that can lead to their suicide. So this is a very sensitive topic. So let's leave it at that and let's go weiter. And we're late. We should have started a few minutes early.
could be a mucker for, we have a distinction of types of suicide, that
Yes.
could be buried or whatever.
Yes.
Could be,
Yes. Okay. Now, as we mentioned, that Rebbe lived his final 17 years of his life in the city called Tzipoidi. Tzipoidi is not Sfas, but it's near there. It's on the mountains. Beis Sha'arim is down in the valley. Tzipoidi is up in the heavens. Rebbe have a Yosef Leib Tzipoidi, and Rebbe lived his final 17 years. How many years? Shvayas Rashanin. And Rebbe said on himself, Vayechi Yaakov ve'eretz Mitzrayim shvas reishana. Now that's really an insult, but that's what he said, right? So he said, Vayechi Yehuda, his name was Yehuda, b'tzipoid and shvas reishana. The irony that the best years of Yaakov's life was in Mitzrayim, but Mitzrayim is not Israel. And Rebbe felt that his Beis Medrash, his Beis Din, and Beis Sha'arim, that was his holy land. Him going to Tzipoidin, he left. When you leave your learning place, you left your holy land. And nevertheless, he had great years there. But he made that comparison. Umin goiv hein, and from those 17 years, now the Gemara in Babli says clearly, like we read in today, that he went there for the ear. He needed ear. The ear was different. But in addition to that, from those 17 years, 13 years, he suffered terribly. What did he have? He had a toothache. Whoever can remind me where the Gemara says, kol ra v'lo isha ra. The Gemara says anything bad, but not a bad woman. Any pain, but not a toothache. There's a Gemara that says like anything, but that's the worst of the worst. There's, I think, a list of 5 or 6 things. I wish I would remember where, but I don't. So we have to learn it again. But the toothache is like the worst. Yakir is thinking, Yakir is looking, he doesn't remember yet.
that's not the one that includes the angry wife.
Yeah, the bad wife. Yeah. See, that we all remember. Kol ra v'lo yishara. I can take kol ke'ev v'lo ke'ev shen. The Rebbe had one tooth left to have a toothache. He had no teeth, but to be yoytze the toothache, that our Rebbe had one tooth, if you saw many pictures, for many years. So Rebbe had a toothache, and it was terrible. Amar Rabbi Yosef Rabun, that you should know that kol oisan shloish esrei shana, that all of those 13 years, because of the pain that Rebbe suffered, like Meisa Chaya Beretz Yisrael, no woman in childbirth died, and no child was born stillborn. In other words, the Manal says in the Bavli that just like by a human organism, it's common that people are afflicted, but when someone is afflicted, one limb is afflicted. Rebbe, the Jewish people are one body, koima shalema, and the tzaddik, Rebbe, was afflicted on behalf of all the people. So since he was suffering, no one else needed to suffer. Suffering has to happen. He was suffering for all of us. And what was the benefit that no one in Eretz Yisrael, which was a big chiddush then, now I know Baruch Hashem, it's much better. But then, that no woman should die during birth, that no child should be stillborn. Mamish the Parshas Hashavua, we're learning this in Mishpatim. Tavshem Pehei loisiya mishakela va'akara ba'artzecha. Okay, now the Gemara wants to know, why did Rebbe suffer? What did he do? So here we said we have this in Babel Yos. There was a time that Rebbe was going about, and Chama Chad Egal Minchas. There was a calf that was about to be slaughtered. You should know animals intuitively know not only that they're about to be slaughtered, but they know that their end of the life is coming through their neck, and they hide their necks. And this calf, sensing that something is going to happen to him, he ran under Rebbe's garment for Rebbe to protect him. So Ga'ah, Va'amar Lei, the calf was crying out. What was the calf crying out? Rebbe, Sheizvai, Ratavit. Amar Lei, and Rebbe told the calf, Lekach Mitzart, you were created to be Su'udah Shabbos Kodesh. Now, the Yerushalmi doesn't say the whole story. In the Babli, it says, so a heavenly voice came out and said that you do not show mercy on God's creations, even though the calf was created to be slaughtered. But you didn't show mercy. So the heavens will not show mercy to you. And that is what brought about his suffering. Now, I want to say like this, just one important nakud, and that's in life, that we, when we're younger, we have a terrible misunderstanding with cause and effect. the way I understand the story, the cause of a suffering was not this. He was destined to suffer. That was the cause. The effect is that when he did that way, now we found you. Certain people are by nature sad. And then they say, I know I am sad because this happened to me. That's not the way it is. You're sad. And you're hooking it on that event. And all of the other feelings that we have, the emes, they are not related to the events. The reason why you attracted those events that are sad making because you're sad. You're an angry person. So you attract around you events that can make you angry. But you're not angry because Chaim Yankel hit you on the head. You were angry before. Rebbe was destined to suffer. And this attracted this Maisa where, the cause, this is not the cause. This is just the effect, the way I understand it. So if there is an effect that brought about his suffering, so what other effect brought about his salvation? So ubesoifa eich in shemat, it's gavaldik. In shemat means he began to breathe again. Like when did he get his breath back? What happened was, no, he didn't have enough mercy on God's creations. We're speaking about animal kingdom. So Chamsoin, Kotlin, Chad, Kanda, Achbarin, he saw that they found a whole nest of mice. What happens if you find a nest of mice in your house? You kill them out. So the maidservants was about to kill them out. Amar.
For the record, Yakir has a exterminating company, and he gets rid of.
Yakir has an
Give us a call.
company. Amar and Rebbe said, Ar poinun, let the mice be. You know why? Now there's a big difference because when you get paid, in other words, let me word it this way. The beauty of Yakir's service is that if I have mice in my house, so for me to get rid of, to kill the mice, it's but for me to pay a Jew, for him to have a parnasa, to kill my mice, I have rachmanas on the mice. I have more rachmanas on Yakir. Your service is such a good service because it takes away the kitrug that one would have had if you wouldn't be making a living off it. In other words, if you find a mice and you know you can get rid of it yourself, don't do that. Hire Yakir. Now let's go back. No.
I'm hiring a Jew.
Yakir is saving me from a toothache. When you pay Yakir to get rid of the mice, what is he doing? He's making sure that you don't get a toothache.
So Yakir is not liked by
Dentist
dentists.
rodent control.
Exactly. They don't.
Our coin is saying a gewaltige word that if you don't get rid of the mice, you're going to have an angry wife.
And kids.
So now you have to choose between a toothache. Okay, ke'ev shein or ish. Now, Rebbe have a anvan sagin. Rebbe was very humble. And don't forget, Rebbe was a descendant of Hillel. And Haba Omar, guys, we have to start tomorrow way earlier because tomorrow we have more Agadata. Haba Omar, and Rebbe used to say, listen to what he said, that Kol man de yemad li barnosha. He was saying this as a fact, that if anything that someone would ask me to do, he knew himself, he would not have the hubris of saying, I'm going to do this for you. Who are you to ask me? He would do anything he was asked. I'm not of it. But there's one thing he says I can't do. Even though he did it, he couldn't do it. Chutz mima she'asu ziknei b'seder lizkeni. B'nei b'seder, if you remember, right in Pesachim, they were the heads, they were the Nasiim, and there was a question when the 14th of Nisan fell out on Shabbos. And the question that they had is that Korban Pesach has some characteristics of a Korban Sibur, which a Korban Sibur b'moyadoi is doiche Shabbos, and a Korban Pesach is like a Korban Yochid. Korban Sibur is one for everyone. Here, every group brings their own. And they didn't know whether you can shecht it on Shabbos. They forgot. And the Bnei Beseda said that they heard that there's a Jew in Bavel, Hillel, who's the most learned Jew of our generation. And they asked Hillel, and Hillel told him, you shecht it on Shabbos. And they began to debate with him, and they saw his superiority in scholarship, and the Bnei Beseda gave up their throne of being a Nasi, and they gave it to Hillel. Rebbe was the Nasi. Rebbe says that I know that I'm humble, and there's nothing that's beneath me. The only thing that I don't see myself being as humble as my grandfather is that if there'll come a situation where there'll be someone that's really worthy to be a Nasi, I cannot give up my Nasias. he owned that limitation vis-a-vis his Zayda. What did his Zaken, what did his Zayda do to Bnei B'Seida? This should what did the Bnei B'Seida do to Hillel? The other way around. This Shuroin Garmoin Minisayasu, so that they what's it called when you step down from your presidency? They step down, relinquished, in order umanoine. They recognized his Zayda.
You resign.
Huh?
You resign.
He resigned. There's a fancier word by when it comes to a king. Anyways, and so it's not about his Zayda. It's that
You abdicate.
Huh?
You abdicate.
He abdicated. So first of all, he wasn't going to give up. I'm not giving it up. But nevertheless, even though he didn't give up his position, says the Gemara that he said that Isolik Rav Huna at that time was the Reish Galusa in Bavel. And Rabbi held that this Rav Huna is greater than him. He says, if Rav Huna is going to come here, I'm not going to give him my position, but I'm going to give him honor. And I'm going to make sure that everyone knows that I acknowledge that he's greater than me without giving up my position. How would he show that? That if he would come over here, I will put his seat higher than mine. Sometimes you see, someone comes into your home and you want to be mechabed them, you put them on your head table. Rebbe says, I will make sure that wherever they sit is more mechubed where I'm sitting. So I'm not going to give up, but I'm going to give it to him. And why is that? So it wasn't about scholarship. It was the Hu min Yehuda, because he, Rav Huna, or pronounced in the Yerushalmi, Rav Huna, he comes ben acher ben from the Shevet of Yehuda, and lo yasur Shevet, right? And the leadership will never leave from Shevet Yehuda. And paternally, I come from Binyamin. Now we know that Rabbeinu HaKadosh was also a descendant from Beis Yehuda, but he was a descendant from Beis Yehuda maternally. Paternally, he came from Binyamin. As he said clearly, Dohu min dichraya. He comes from Shevet Yehuda, from the male. And I also come from Yehuda, but min nukvasa.
I'm sorry, what wouldn't he give up his seat?
He would not give up his position, but he would make sure that the Rav Huna is sitting on a more honorable position.
Why wouldn't he give up his position?
Because he wasn't humble enough to do that. That's what he said. Clear.
And everybody agreed with him?
Of course. You know how humble it is for you to acknowledge in public that you're not humble or that you have a limitation? That's the real humility, not to be humble.
Got it.
The way it is. Chatzman, and indeed, now listen to what happened. Chatzman all Rab Chia Ruba Legabi. Now, Rab Chia, guys, if you're gonna, I want you to know there were a few Rab Chias. There were mainly two big Rab Chias. There was Rab Chia, the third generation of Amoraim, and who lived in Bavel. Both were Rab Chia bar Abba. And then you have Rab Chia bar Abba Karsala, who was at this era in between the Tanaim and the Amoraim. In the Yerushalmi, we call that Rab Chia Talmud of Rabbi. Rab Chia, the teacher of Rav. Rab Chia, the uncle of Rav. He's called in the Yerushalmi Rab Chia Ruba, the great Rab Chia. Now, when Rab Chia came, Rab Chia was a Talmud of Rabbi. He told his teacher, Rav Huna's outside. What really happened was Rav Huna passed away, and they brought him to the Holy Land to be buried. He didn't say that right away. When he told Rebbe Rav Huna's outside, Rebbe knew that right now he's going to have to not talk the talk, but walk the walk. He's going to now publicly be mechabed Rav Huna by showing everyone that he considered that Rav Huna, because of his yichus, greater than him. And Rebbe already acknowledged it's hard for him. And he reacted, why niskarkem upanav shel Rebbe. His face turned the color. It was difficult. He was faced with doing something that he was not comfortable in doing. The moment Rab Chia saw that his teacher is uncomfortable, Amalei Rab Chia told Rebbe, no. You're not giving him a seat. He came in a coffin. Now Rebbe was upset at him. Rebbe was upset. Why did you make me?
We're still learning why Rabbi Yehuda was earning the is Olam Haba?
No.
We moved on.
We moved on.
Okay.
Amalei. So Rabbi tells Rabchia, Puk v'chami man boyeloch levar. Why don't you go and see if someone needs you outside? And Rabbi didn't want to say, get out for making me uncomfortable. Rabbi told him, why don't you see if someone needs you outside? Unafak, he went outside and he realized there's no one there. So he chapped that Rabbi told him, get out. The Yada, and therefore he realized the who koyis alove, that Rabbi was upset at him. So Avar the law legabe telasa yomim. So Rabbi took upon himself what we call this nezifa. We learned about this in Bavli. Nezifa is a self-imposed chedim. Rabbi didn't tell him, I'm kicking you out, but he felt that from Rabbi. So he says, okay, for 30 days I'm not coming. Now, when it comes to a 30-day...
This follows with learning in Sanhedrin, but Yochanan had a thing with this guy named Zajac, who taught a corrupted brisa. And he said, go teach it outside. And in the shir, you said, you didn't throw him out. You said, go teach that elsewhere. Throw the teaching out.
Throw the teaching out.
The person out.
Here, in Yerushalmi, they're sharper. He threw Rabbi out indirectly. Now listen to this. Rabbi took upon himself Nazifa, and here comes the kasha. The kasha is that on the 30th day, it's a 30 Nazifa, like a chedim, minimum 30 days. In certain areas, like when it comes to shloshim, mixas hayom kekulei. So there was a question regarding the 30th day. Rebbe was being machmir with his nazifa. Rabbi was planning to come back to Rabbeinu HaKadosh on day 31. But for Rebbe, Rebbe understood that Rabbi took upon himself the self-imposed isolation. In Rebbe's mind, it would make sense for Rabbi to return on the 30th day. I'm saying this for you to appreciate what happened. Amar Rabbi Yosi Barbun. I want you to know that Kol Inun Tulasa Yoimaya, during those 30 days, Yolaf Rav Minei Klolo Doiraisa. What do you think Rabbi Chia did? When Rabbi Chia was a Talmud of Rebbe, he was bottled to Rebbe. Now that Rabbi Chia was away from Rebbe, so now he began to shine. You know how much he was shining? That during those 30 days, I said Rabbi Chia was the teacher of Rav. In 30 days, he taught Rav all of the klalim of the whole Torah. It's gavaldik that. In other words, when the moon is close to the sun, the moon is invisible. When the moon is far away from the sun, the moon is shining fully. When our Rebbe was by the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Rebbe was a chassid. And then when the Frierdiker Rebbe was physically not here, the Rebbe's a Rebbe. Now we're going back. At the end of 13 years and 30 days, now it's amazing how we are linking, Yakir, not the story of Olam Haba, but we're linking the 13 years of suffering and this 30 days. So it's amazing how the end of the 13 years is connected to the story. So his pain went away. Rabbi Chia was out. Now it's at the end of the 30 days. Rabbi Chia himself was not planning to come back on that day. He was planning to come back on the next day. But they decided in the heavens to notify Rebbe how great of a student he has. So how did they do it? That all Eliyahu Hanavi came into the Beis Medrash, b'demus Rabbi Chia Ruba. As far as Rebbe was concerned, who entered the Beis Medrash? Rabbi Chia. And it made sense. Who really entered the Beis Medrash? Eliyahu Hanavi. And Amalei, Eliyahu told Rebbe, Ma Mori Ovid, how are you doing? I take it back. It was at the end of the 13th. His pain of the tooth did not go away. He had Rachmanas on the mice, but the suffering didn't stop yet. Now they decreed in the heaven it should stop. Amalei, Rebbe told to Rabbi Chia, to Eliyahu Navi, what do you mean, how am I doing? Chat shinai mi'ikoli. One tooth is hurting me. Amalei, Eliyahu Navi told him, Chame lo li, show the tooth to me. Eliyahu Navi is also called the Malach Abris, who's Malach Rafal. Malach Rafal is connected to Eliyahu Navi. So he went to heal him. The Chame Leile, Rebbe showed him the tooth that's hurting. The Yoav Etzba'asei Allah, Eliyahu Navi embodied in Rabbi Chia, put his finger on the tooth, and the Inshamat, and he healed the tooth. Cured. Now, Eliyahu Navi goes back to the heavens, or to wherever else he goes to help another Jew in another place. And the next day, Rabbi Chia is back. Rabbi Chia himself. L'machar all Rabbi Chia ruba legabe. And now he didn't see Rebbe for 30 days. It's the 31st day. So Amalei, he told him, Ma Avad Rebbe, how you doing? Was machst du? And Rab Chia knew how much Rebbe suffered. So he asked specifically, Hi Shinoch, Mahi Avida, how is your tooth? What is the tooth doing to you? He didn't know what happened yesterday. Amalei, so Rabbeinu HaKadosh told Rab Chia, Min Hahi Shata, from the moment, the Ahaft Etzba'asach Allah, from when you put your finger on my tooth, in Shamat, I healed. Now,
Wait, why didn't they pull the tooth out 13 years ago?
That's such a good question.
I
They
mean,
asked this on the
seriously?
Rebbe. The Rebbe had one tooth left to suffer from a toothache. Now, 1 second. So when Rab Chia heard that the Rebbe stopped suffering, you know what his first reaction was? I feel bad for all of the women giving birth now. Amar, Ba'isa Shah Amar, Oy lochem chayish of Eretz Yisrael, and oy lochem ubarish of Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbe's pain was that which caused no woman to die when she gave birth, no child to be miscarried. Now I feel bad. And Amalei, and then Rab Chia realized, what do you mean when I put, first he felt bad for the other people. Then he told Rebbe, with all due respect, Rebbe, I was not here yesterday. I didn't put my finger on your mouth. Amalei, ano loy havena. Maybe Rab Chia was telling Rebbe, I would never do such a thing, because I feel bad for all of the women. Ich weiß nicht. It's gewaltig. Now Rebbe realized that Eliyahu Hanavi came to him b'demus Rab Chia. Why did he do that? Because Eliyahu Hanavi was trying to show Rebbe the greatness of Rab Chia. Like, you don't appreciate him enough. You got upset at him. You told him to go out. So Minai he shata. From that story, Havanoig Bey Bikar Yakir. He began to show Rab Chia a new yakar, a new respect. For example, Kadhava Olo Lebeis Vado, whenever Rebbe will come to teach, Hava Omer, he would say, Yekanes Rab Chia Ruba Lefnim. Let Rab Chia come to the front. You see that Rebbe expressed his kavod by where you sit. Right? Rav Huna is going to sit on top of him. And here, when it comes to the Talmidim, the closer you got, the greater you were. Rab Chia is promoted to closer. Now, there was another person, another Tana. Amaloi Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yosi. Ooh, 1 second. You're promoting Rab Chia more than me? Lefnim imenu? No. Amalei chas v'shalom. Ella, Rab Chia Ruba Lefnim. Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yosi, Lefnai v'Lefnim. Now, we have in Bavli Shabbos Daf Nun Aleph and in other places how much Rebbe appreciated Rabbi Shmuel but Rabbi Yosi, not because of Rabbi Shmuel, because Rabbi Shmuel but Rabbi Yosi would bring the teachings of Rabbi Yosi. So in Shabbos there was a sugya of a tzunoin, of a radish, whether you could make atmana, you cannot make atmana, and everyone says you cannot do it. And Rebbe said, no, mutar lahatmin tzunoin b'Shabbos. How do you know it? Because that's what Rabbi Shmuel but Rabbi Yosi taught me. Again, about yichus, and he was mechabed Rav Huna because he had yichus. He was mechabed Rabbi Shmuel because he was bir Rabbi Yosi, and that yichus was greater than Rab Chia. Another way that Rebbe expressed now a lot of kavod to Rab Chia, that Rebbe having masnei shvachid Rab Chia, Rebbe would relate the praises of Rab Chia Ruba, kumei Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yosi, daf pei amid beis. At least return to amid. Now listen to what happened. This is unbelievable. Chadzman chamei Goy Banei, once Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yosi saw Rabbi Chia inside the bathhouse. And Rebbe already established that Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yosi sits lefnai v'lefnim. So in the hierarchy of things, they both knew from their teacher, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, that Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yosi is greater. Which means that Rabbi Chia should be machabed Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yosi. And Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yosi is hearing praises of Rabbi Chia, praises of Rabbi Chia. Then he meets in a bathhouse. V'loi iskanam in kaimei. Rabbi Chia showed no kavod to him. I want to make it clear that remember there are 3 rooms in the bathhouse: the outermost, the inner, and the outermost, the inner, and the middle. In a location where people are ungarbed, there is no obligation to give kavod at all. And actually, as we'll see in a moment, one is not allowed to learn Torah when one is in front of nakedness. Obviously, this happened when they were in the outermost room of the bathhouse. Everyone is dressed, and he should have given him honor. So he got slighted. So Amalei Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yossi told Rabbeinu HaKadosh that Ahonu da'at masne shivchei. Is this the guy, the one that you keep on praising? In other words, he's not worthy of praise. Rebbe sensed that Rabbi Shmuel was insulted by him. Amalei, Rebbe told him, Ma Avedlach, what did he do to you? Amalei, Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yossi told him, Chamse Geibane, he saw me in the bathhouse, V'leis kanam in Karmei, and he didn't stand up for me. He didn't show me any reverence. And he should have. So now Rebbe is going to take issue with Rab Chia. So Amalei, Rebbe tells Rab Chia, Lama Avad Kain, why Taka did you not show him covet? You know what Rab Chia told him? Yeyol Alai, may something terrible happen to me. The in sachis lo yodis. Even if I went to the bathhouse today, I don't even remember. I'm completely not aware of it. Why was Rab Chia not aware that he went to the bathhouse? Because by Hishata, because when he was sitting in the outer bathhouse, Ashkeris Einai Bechol Sefer Tilim Agada. That there's an Agada that they had that's written on the Sefer Tehillim. Rab Chia, what did he do when he was in the outer bathhouse? He reviewed the whole Agada of Sefer Tehillim. That means he was telling his teacher, I was so into that topic, I was so into my learning, I was completely not even aware I'm in the bathhouse. So I didn't stand up in front of him, I didn't see him. I don't even remember being there. Can you imagine? Gavaldik. So Menahishato. What did Rabbi hear? That this person is living in a different universe. Masa leishnei talmidim. Rabbi gave to Rab Chia 2 students the halchanim that they should always walk with him, pasha to protect them, begin sakanta. In other words, not being aware of your environment is not safe. When he heard that he has a Talmud that can go to the bathhouse, a bathhouse was not today taking a shower. It took like an hour. It was a whole thing. The only thing he remembered is that, I reviewed the whole Agadah of Sefer Tehillim. I must have been in the bathhouse today. So Rebbe took away that he needs to have people to protect him because he doesn't know where he's walking. I heard about Rabbi Yoel Khan that he once walked into 770 with a big bag of garbage on his shoulder. Because the minhag he had, like many people, is that his wife asked him to take the garbage out. So when she asked him to take the garbage out, that he remembered. He picked it up and he put it on his shoulder. And then he got into his learning. And he walks into 770 holding a bag of garbage now without awareness. So here we have it. Chevra, I know we're in the middle of the story. Tomorrow we're going to start.
Question. What's the deeper meaning of a toothache here? And the Rebbe having a tooth problem, and what does that all? What does it mean? I
would say like this. I'm just going on a limb. I'm saying something from out of my stomach. That the Sefer Yetzirah begins that the 32 paths leading you into wisdom, and we have 32 teeth, and teeth are connected to bina, and the only way you get into chachma is by going into bina, even though chachma and bina are opposites. And Abena and Kedusha is connected to Chachma. So Rebbe was the master in getting into that universe. And maybe from the Lamed base, from the many different paths, one path he was not mastered yet in. And that manifested in a toothache. And it's also connected to being merciful, obviously. Rachamim is the kesed. That the more merciful a person is, the easier of a time they have getting into that universe of Chachma.
So he was suffering because God wanted him to learn to be more merciful? I said before, I
really believe he was destined to suffer, period.
Right, anyway, yeah.
And then we find an excuse, and that's all of our lives. You decide to be and then you find an excuse. Huh?
And Rachamim is a midah you feel in your lev, and lev is also 32.
The Rachamim is in your lev, very good. No, there was some, and one thing is for sure, that suffering makes people more merciful. Suffering makes people more merciful.
What's worse than suffering? A terrible wife. It's Yevamas Samach Gimel.
And
who is it? It's Rav and Reb Chia. Rav was the one with the terrible wife. His wife used to tell the kid to make he used to switch the instruction. The wife would make the opposite of what.
I think Rabbi Chia's wife was also not so wonderful.
With the shopping,
he was the one that said that she saves me from Zara Levatala and she raises the kids, and for that, I honor her.